Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans and you're watching the John Cedars channel from the bunker, and in this video I'm going to be listening to another one of my voicemails. That's right, you can, if you want, call into the John Cedars channel. The link that you need is speakpipe.com/Cedars, and when you try to leave a voicemail you will be reminded that if you don't want me to play your voicemail on my channel or make it public in any way, you need to make that clear in the voicemail itself. So you get a total of 5 minutes, and if somewhere in that 5 minutes you mention, by the way, this voicemail isn't to be played on the channel or made public, I will absolutely honour that request. However, if there is no such disclaimer in the voicemail, I will play it if I feel it's relevant for viewers to listen to. This message that I'm going to play you today is very much relevant. I feel it perfectly encapsulates a mindset that is common among those who are ousted or disfellowshipped from the Jehovah's Witness religion. It's probably best summed up with the letters POMI or POMI, physically out, mentally in. In other words, you've made it out of the organization, but you still have a connection mentally with the indoctrination that you were perhaps raised with from childhood. And that's very evident to at least some degree in the voicemail that we're going to listen to, but I'll let you hear for yourself.
Hi, Lloyd. My name is Daniel, and I am a disfellowshipped ex-witness. There's just one question that keeps running through my mind over and over again, and that's this one empty question that fills my mind. It's if this is not the truth, if that was not the truth. I mean, considering that every single other religion, um, it doesn't seem at all even close to being the truth. Especially not Catholic, all the Pope and all of his followers, being pedophiles. Baptist Church, I mean, clearly, nothing else seems even close to a true religion other than Jehovah's Witnesses still to this day. It doesn't mean that I believe in what they spoke about, but I just have this empty feeling and wonder, what if this is not the truth, then what is? If this is not the truth, who is there a God even? And or are we all really just science? Are we made up of just cells and molecular data? I don't know. I'm really curious as to what your standings are as far as your religion goes now. Thanks. Let me know.
So, quite a lot to unpack there. Hopefully you'll understand what I mean about this being an individual who seems quite conflicted and who seems to at least some degree to be holding on to his Jehovah's Witness indoctrination. But if you don't mind, I will now address my reply to Daniel. Daniel, your question, well, there are actually a couple of questions there. There is the question, if this is not the truth, what is? In other words, if this is not God's one true religion, then what is God's one true religion? And the second question is there a God? Now, with the second question, that's really something that you need to decide for yourself. If you're holding a candle for the idea that there is a God, or if you are so minded that the world only makes sense if there is a God, and I genuinely believe some people are like that, then I don't consider it my job to tell you, well, more than likely there isn't. I happen to be an agnostic atheist. I happen to think that all religions are man-made. I take the position that if you want to prove to me that your particular religion is true, then by all means show me the evidence. But so far no one has shown me any compelling evidence for any of the myriad religions that exist or have existed. But just because I am an agnostic atheist, I certainly don't expect everyone to be agnostic atheists. And I even think, and this is probably a controversial view among atheists, I even think some people seem to be so minded as to apparently need some kind of belief in the supernatural to sustain them emotionally. So I don't consider it my job to give you an answer to the question, is there a God? You can leave Jehovah's Witnesses and believe in God. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. You need to decide for yourself if there is a true religion. I can only tell you categorically that if there is a true religion, which I don't think there is, it most certainly isn't Jehovah's Witnesses. It most certainly isn't. You need to follow 8 dudes in New York or you're going to get burnt to a crisp at Armageddon. I don't see that as a belief system that stands up to even the slightest logical scrutiny. It's the sort of thing that you can only begin to accept when you've been conditioned into believing it, and when you've had your thoughts organized for you so that you even consider this as a serious question. I'm sorry, if this isn't the truth, what is? That's a Watchtower question. That's a question that they give you based on an exchange in, I think, John chapter 6. Lord, who shall we go away to? You are the one with words of everlasting life. That's talking about Jesus. That's talking about Christianity. It's not talking about 8 dudes in New York who write Watchtower magazines. It just isn't. So basically, the game is rigged. They have written the question for you, and they've also written the answer for you, because they expect you to go through what I call the box ticking exercise, where you look at all the other religions and ask questions that only Jehovah's Witnesses can answer in the affirmative, because they've decided those things are important. Does your religion recognize Jehovah as God's name? Yes. Jehovah's Witnesses do, even though Yahweh, it's been determined, is a more accurate reference to the God of the Bible. They've rigged the question so that they're the only ones who can answer it favorably. Is your religion preaching all over the earth? Yes, we are. Actually, technically, you're not preaching in all lands. I'm not too familiar with assemblies and conventions being held in China. I'm not too familiar with there being hundreds, thousands, or even dozens of Jehovah's Witnesses in countries like Afghanistan or Somalia. So even by their own criteria, they fail. But does this mean that in order to be God's one true religion, all I need to do is set up a group of people that calls God Jehovah and has at least some representation around the world? Therefore, I get to be God's one true religion. That's the problem with the box ticking exercise. It's designed to evade the central issue of, is there any proof objectively that this organization has been unmistakably chosen by the Creator? And every Jehovah's Witness knows deep down that the answer to that question is no. You're not expected to believe based purely on the number of countries the religion is present in, based purely on whether you're calling God Jehovah or not. You're supposed to believe based on the slave teaching. And the slave teaching says that between 1914 and 1919, Jesus carried out an inspection of the world's religions and settled on Joseph Rutherford, an extremely dubious character, if you look at my videos on that man, settled on Joseph Rutherford and Rutherford's associates as his faithful slave. That's apparently why Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to believe that their religion is the one and only true one, because it was chosen by God. Doesn't matter about everything else, about the box ticking exercise. Do we go to war or not? How many languages is jw.org in? How quickly can we build facilities? All of that doesn't make an ounce of difference. The central issue is, and always should be, is it true? Has it been chosen by God? And not only is there zero proof that Jesus conveniently, invisibly chose Rutherford and his associates, but also there's quite a lot of proof to confirm that that more than likely didn't happen, especially when you read, for example, The Finished Mystery, which was published in 1917. During this inspection process, I would encourage any person in your situation who still holds a candle for Jehovah's Witness beliefs, look up The Finished Mystery. It's not an apostate publication. It was written by the slave during the period when the slave was chosen. Look up that book, read it, and tell me with a straight face that Jesus would have chosen the men who wrote that to be his faithful slave. I'm sorry. It makes no sense whatsoever. So I would encourage you, rather than allowing your thoughts to be kind of railroaded along this whole idea of where else do I go to, what other organization could be the truth. It's ironic that you point to the Catholics and say, oh, they have an issue with pedophilia. I don't know whether you have done any research at all into, for example, the Australian Royal Commission, but for every finger Jehovah's Witnesses want to point at the Catholics on that particular issue, that the Catholics are well within their rights to point two fingers back, because that is not an area, I'm afraid, in which the organisation has any freeness of speech whatsoever. But ultimately, again, it's just a rigged test. It's a rigged exercise that Watchtower has come up with. It's a thought-stopping piece of argumentation that's designed to stop you from doing objective research into the organisation's past, the failed predictions, the flip-flops, the false teachings, the scandals, the misery and the abusive policies. All of that quickly comes to the surface when you allow yourself to do research, and that's why it's crucially important that anyone who gets out of the organisation, whether through being disfellowshipped or through just fading or disassociating, they need to do their research, because otherwise, when disastrous things happen, like COVID-19, I'm sure that the timing of your message isn't entirely coincidental, because it obviously, your message came in 2 or 3 weeks ago. You're bound to panic, aren't you, when there are catastrophes and disasters, and you're bound to think, oh, this is proof. No, it really, really isn't. It really, really isn't. All throughout the organization's 140-year history, there have been disasters, there have been wars, there have been earthquakes, there have been epidemics, and even a pandemic of the Spanish flu in 1918. The world's still here, and there's no Armageddon, and we should all be grateful, in my view, that it isn't true that this is God's one true religion, because otherwise the universe is an extremely messed up place, and everyone who doesn't bend their knee to 8 mostly white, mostly bloated old dudes in New York apparently deserves to be executed. Men, women, and children in their billions. I don't want to live in that kind of universe, and I'm glad that we don't live in that kind of universe. So that's, I guess, longer than I intended to spend on that question, but nevertheless, I'm hopeful that it's of at least some help to you. I guess the bottom line is, do your research. And this is a journey that you should relish, because it's actually a very exciting and very fulfilling journey to go down, to figure out for yourself, to the extent possible, what's true and what isn't true. And I'm not here to tell you that journey needs to lead to you being an atheist. You have to decide that for yourself, basically. So that is everything I have for you in this video. I hope it's been of interest to you all. Don't forget to subscribe to the John Cedars channel for more such videos. And as always, thank you for watching.